The clerk will report any communications from the House of Delegates.
Madam President, I move that we waive the reading of any communications from the House of Delegates.
The question is, shall the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates be waived? All in favor of waiving the reading of the communication from the House of Delegates will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 34, noes 4.
The senior senators from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Yes, Madam President, members of the Senate, the plan will be initially for the next hour and 15 minutes to get through as much of the blue and white calendars as we can. Then we're going to recess for an hour because the page's mock session is approximately 10 to 11. You can stay here or go back to your office or do whatever. Okay, so that's the schedule, at least for the next hour and a half or 2 hours.
The clerk will call the roll. On the calendar.
Thursday, March 5th, 2020. Supplemental calendar number 1.
It is Thursday.
Regular calendar, House Bill on third reading. House Bill 1256, a bill relating to redistricting, Virginia Redistricting Commission, congressional and state legislative districts, standards and criteria, population data.
The senator from Southern Fairfax County, Senator Barker.
Madam President, I move that passage of the bill. And speaking to the bill,
Senator has the floor.
This is the one where we made a few amendments to it last night, and I explained it when we had the floor substitute. It was adopted. So with that explanation having been given before, I just renew my motion that we pass the bill.
Thank you. I have here the junior senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator has the floor.
Speaking to the bill, specifically speaking to the floor amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentleman from Fairfax County.
Senator has the floor.
I asked earlier in the day whether the senator could explain the connection between this bill and what is coming out of the House with regard to the redistricting process. And let's be very clear that the people in this body, this Senate, have made it perfectly and abundantly clear to the citizenry in Virginia that we are in favor of a redistricting commission, a 16-member redistricting commission. While it may get held up or it may have some obstacles, it's not in this body. This body is in favor of that redistricting process. Now, with that said, there have been some folks on the other side of the building that have said, well, we may walk it back, this redistricting commission that we pledged to support in our campaigns, because we're concerned about a lack of diversity. Madam President, that's utter folly. Consider the following, and you can consider it in Senator Barker's substitute. I looked at this and have read this probably 8 or 9 times. I count at least 8 safeguards to assure the public, Virginians, that there's diversity. First of all, there's 8 legislative commissioners. Do you know who picks those legislative commissioners, Madam President?
Yes, I do.
Do you know who one of those people are, Madam President?
You're looking at me.
I'm looking at her. I am looking at Madam President.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Not yet. Not yet, but I will.
Madam President, my question is, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, I hope the senator appreciates that everyone in this body knows where we are on this bill. We know the history of it, we know the voting of it, and we know what our policy situation is. And we are incredibly pressed for time this morning, so I appreciate your insight, but we know where we are.
Thank the senator from James City. And I agree. Now, with that said, Madam President, let's be clear about this. We are going to select a redistricting commission
Madam
selection.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
I'd ask we stand at ease for a moment, and the Republicans please gather in the corner.
Madam President.
Senate will stand at ease.
The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Good morning, Mr. President. How are you today, sir?
Good morning, Senator. I'm great. How are you?
I'm going to be much better as soon as we pass House Bill 1256 by temporarily. That is my motion.
That's the senator's motion. Any objection? Without objection, House Bill 1256 will go by temporarily.
On page 2 of your supplemental calendar, unfinished business House Bill 798, the House has rejected the Senate substitute.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
We should insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 23, no 16.
Ayes 23, no 16. The Senate insists and requests a committee of conference.
House Bill 1537, the House has rejected the Senate substitute.
Senator from Accomack, Senator Lewis.
Mr. President, I move we insist on our substitute and request a committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate insist and request a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 25, noes 14.
Ayes 25, noes 14. The Senate insists and requests a committee of conference.
On page 3, House Bill 36, conferees named by the chair of the Committee on Education and Health, Senator Lucas, are Senators Boysko, Hashmi, and Cosgrove. On page 4, House Bill 675, conferees on the part of the Senate as named by the chairman of the Transportation Committee, Senator Marsden, are Senators Surville, McClellan, and Cosgrove. House Bill 1049 on page 5. The House has acceded to the request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate as named by the chairman of the Committee on General Laws and Technology, Senator Barker, are Senators Bell, McPike, and Donovan. On page 5, House Bill 1056. The House has acceded to the request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate as named by the chair of the Committee on Rules, Senator Locke, are Senators Favola, Boysko, and Vogel. On page 6, House Bill 1406, the House has acceded to the request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Rules, Senator Locke, are Senators Lucas, Favola, and Peterson. Page 6, House Bill 1424, the House has acceded to the request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Rules, Senator Locke, are Senators Hashmi, McClellan, and Favola. Page 6, House Joint Resolution 20, the House has acceded to the request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Rules, Senator Locke, are Senators Marsden, Deeds, and McDougall. Page 7, House Joint Resolution 100. The House has acceded to the request for a committee of conference. Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Rules, Senator Locke, are Senators Locke, Lucas, and Normand. On page 8, House Bill 648. The House has requested a second committee of conference.
Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the second committee of conference.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a second committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a second committee of conference.
On page 8, House Bill 1705, we are awaiting House action. Unfinished business Senate. Senate Bill 172 has passed the House with a substitute.
Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that the Senate accept the substitute.
Senators, the floor.
Speaking to that motion, Mr. President, this is the balanced billing bill, which I discussed at length yesterday. The House bill the substitute on the House bill is exactly the bill that was the floor substitute yesterday. It takes patients out of any negotiation with an out-of-network provider. It was a compromise bill among many stakeholders, and it passed in the Senate 40-0, and the House substitute, which I'm accepting, passed 99-0. I'm happy to take questions, but with that explanation, again, I ask that we accept the House substitute.
Thank the senator. For what purpose does the senator from Henrico, Senator Dunham, rise?
Mr. President, if the senator will yield for a question, I just want to know the difference in the.
Will Senator yield?
Yes, Mr. President, I will.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
Mr. President, what are the differences in the House substitute, please?
Senators, the floor.
There are no differences. The floor substitute that we adopted was word for word what was adopted in the House.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Question, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
On page 9, Senate Bill 215 has passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendment to Senate Bill 215.
Senators, the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the jail death review report. That what we're going to do is get the aggregate information from across the Commonwealth and see what can be done to try to reduce these tragedies across the Commonwealth. It's going to be a public report, but along the way, several folks have asked that they specifically be sent a copy. It'll be accessible to anyone with an internet connection, but I'm happy to put it in the code that they get their own special copy, and I hope that we'll concur with the amendment.
Thank the senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
On page 9, Senate Bill 236 has passed the House with amendment.
Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I move that we concur with the House amendment. And speaking to that measure,
Senators, the floor.
This is the ballot bill for the redistricting commission if the constitutional amendment passes. And what was done in the House was just a slight addition there of less than basically half a sentence. So, and it's acceptable in this particular situation. And I'd move that we renew my motion to concur with the House amendment.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
Senate Bill 423 has passed the House with amendments.
Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeStaff.
Mr. President, I request we reject the House amendments and request a committee conference.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, the House actually put numerous reenactment clauses on this. One of them was to send it to the HERC. One of them was, which it's already been to the HERC 6 times. One of them was to, do I need to keep explaining or?
Nope.
Okay, great. Let's reject the House amendments.
Thank the senator. With the recommendation that they be rejected, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 0, noes 39.
Ayes 0, noes 39. The Senate does not concur with the House amendments.
Senate Bill 489 has passed the House with a substitute on page 10.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Servell.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is related to other bills that are in conference, and so at this time I'd move that we reject with the House substitute so we can get this into conference with the other two.
The Senator, with the recommendation that it be rejected, the question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 1, noes 38.
Ayes 1, noes 38. The Senate does not concur with the House substitute.
On page 10, Senate Bill 492 has passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Servell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we concur with the House substitute and speaking to that motion.
Senators, the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, when it went over, had two pieces, two separate policy pieces. The House struck one, left the other one untouched. They struck the what did they strike? They struck the provision that would expand the group of people who can apply to get themselves removed from the sex offender registry. But they left the part that clarified who should be on the violent sex offender registry. So we need to concur with this. And I can answer any further questions if anybody has them, but you're basically voting for something you've already voted for before.
Perfect. Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 18.
Ayes 21, noes 18. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
On page 11, Senate Bill 631 has passed the House with amendments.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Servell.
Could I go by temporarily really quick?
Without objection, the bill will go by temporarily.
On page 12, Senate Bill 851 has passed the House with a substitute.
Senior Senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the Senate adopt the substitute. And speaking to that,
Senators, the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the Clean Economy Act. The substitute that you have before you is one that has been negotiated among all the stakeholders after many, many hours. And there is consensus. The differences between as this bill left the Senate and what you have before you now is that it will get Virginia's electric grid to 100% carbon-free by 2045. It includes energy efficiency targets of 5% by 2025 to help reduce demand. It increases investments in solar and onshore wind and increasing the net metering cap to 6% and the power purchase agreement cap to 1,000 megawatts. The RGGI language that was in the original draft has been removed because that bill has already passed and is on the way to the governor as a standalone bill. But this bill adds language to address getting to zero carbon emissions beyond 2030. It provides an array of changes to strengthen State Corporation Commission oversight to provide ratepayer protections. It includes language that requires the SCC to consider the social costs of carbon based in scientifically grounded and peer-reviewed analysis. New language requires utilities to develop and submit to the SCC a plan to utilize local workers and maximize economic benefits and encourage workforce development. The language now provides pathways for companies with renewable energy goals to procure offshore wind directly, helping to reduce the cost of investment for all other ratepayers. And instead of establishing the PIP, the percentage of income payment, it will establish a process through an SCC proceeding and a stakeholder group convened by DHCD and DSS to develop a framework for that program in the next few years. And with that explanation, I ask that we adopt the House substitute.
Thank the Senator. For what purpose is Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson rise?
Gentlelady, yield for a question.
Senator yield.
I yield.
Senator yields. You have the floor.
And I would ask the gentlelady, not yesterday, the other half of today, we passed a bill that had to do with amortization rates and depreciation, and I would just ask the gentlelady how that works within the context of what we're about to vote on now.
Senator's the floor.
That is pretty much separate from this, except the following. Under current law, the utilities decide when they will retire their plants and how the amortization will occur. This bill puts a date in by which the plants will be closed. The bill we passed yesterday deals with how the changes how the amortization will occur.
Okay. Further question, gentlelady.
Senator Yield.
Yes.
Senator Yield, you have the floor.
And this is a more general question, and I did have a chance to read the bill a day ago. Can you just generally speak to SEC oversight over these charges for basically all of these new activities we're undertaking?
Senator's the floor.
I can. I can provide a high-level overview in the interest of time. If you want to get a little more in the weeds, I have a piece of paper I'd be happy to share with you or anybody else. But the FCC can reject any renewable energy costs that it deems unreasonable or imprudent. This bill gives them greater oversight over the development of offshore wind through cost containment and competitive procurement language. They have additional authority to require utilities to procure wind, solar, and energy storage resources from third-party developers. And again, in the interest of time, I have more detail on a one-page sheet I'd be happy to share with anyone who needs to review it, unless you want me to read it now.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 22, no 17.
Ayes 22, no 17. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
On page 12, Senate Bill 891 has passed the House with amendments.
Senator from Western Fairfax, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accept the House amendments. These were amendments that I suggested just at the last minute. We wanted to make sure that this bill, which deals with the creating regulations for and inspections of pet stores, didn't drag in federally controlled research-related facilities, and that's what the amendment does, and I move that the amendment pass, or the bill pass. Or we accept the amendment, I'm sorry.
Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 29, noes 10.
Ayes 29, noes 10. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
On page 13, Senate Bill 1003 has passed the House with a substitute.
Senator from Russell, Senator Chafin.
Mr. President, I move that the substitute be agreed to.
Senator's floor.
This is the bill that makes a misdemeanor offense out of the malicious use of the internet to cause damages or losses to another. The substitute just moved language around in the bill. It really was of little consequence and didn't change the impact of it. I move that it be approved.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House substitute? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 2.
Ayes 38, noes 2. The Senate concurs with the House substitute.
On page 14, Senate Bill 1065 has passed the House with amendment.
Senior Senator from Virginia Beach, Senator D-Staff.
Mr. President, I suggest or recommend we accept the House amendments. And speaking to that,
Senator's the floor.
Mr. President, what the House amendments do is direct the department to report the findings to the governor and the General Assembly by December 1st, 2020. So with that, I request we pass this bill and accept the House amendments.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendment? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate concurs with the House amendment.
On page 14, Senate Bill 7, the House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I would move that we accede to their request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the Chair of the Committee on Commerce and Labor, Senator Saslaw, are Senators Saslaw, Surville, and Newman. On page 14, Senate Bill 54, the House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
The Senior Senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we agree to accede to the committee of conference as requested by the House of Delegates.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the Chair of the Committee on Finance and Appropriations, Senator Howell, are Senators Cosgrove, Marsden, and Deeds. On page 15, Senate Bill 94, the House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Mr. President, I think we should accede to the request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 23, no 17.
Ayes 23, no 17. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the Chair of the Committee on Commerce and Labor, Senator Saslaw, are Senators Favola, Morrissey, Chafin, and Bell. On page 15, Senate Bill 183, the House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 24, no 16.
Ayes 24, no 16. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the Chair of the Committee on Local Government, Senator Lewis, are Senators Locke, Bell, and Reeves. On page 15, Senate Bill 272, the House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Loudoun, Senator Bell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to accede to the request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 29, noes 10.
Ayes 29, noes 10. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the Chair of the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources, Senator Peterson, are Senators Bell, Favola, and Pillion. Page 16, Senate Bill 375. The House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate accede to the House's request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on the Judiciary, Senator Edwards, are Senators Edwards, Peterson, and Chafin. Page 16, Senate Bill 392. The House has insisted on its amendments and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Prince William County, Senator McPeak.
Good morning, Mr. or good evening. I move to accede to the request for a committee of conference. I think the other one is from the
Lynchburg. That's right,
there,
brothers from Lynchburg. I thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Education and Health, Senator Lucas, are Senators McPike, Lewis, Cosgrove.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
On page 17, Senate Bill 433, the House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Surville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 1.
Ayes 39, noes 1. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on the Judiciary, Senator Edwards, are Senators Surville, Peterson, and Chafin. Page 17, Senate Bill 740. The House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Rockingham, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I move that we accede to the House request for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, no 0.
Ayes 40, no 0. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Privileges and Elections, Senator Deeds, are Senators Barker, Obenshain, and Surville. Page 17, Senate Bill 1040. The House has insisted on its substitute and requested a committee of conference.
Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the House's request for a committee of conference.
I thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 38, noes 1.
Ayes 38, noes 1. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Education and Health, Senator Lucas, are Senators Vogel, Hashmi, and Bell. On page 18, Senate Joint Resolution 38, the House has insisted on its amendment and requested a committee of conference.
The senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accede to the request by the House of Delegates for a committee of conference.
Thank the Senator. The question is, shall the Senate accede to the request for a committee of conference? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate accedes to the request for a committee of conference.
Conferees on the part of the Senate, as named by the chair of the Committee on Rules, Senator Locke, are Senators Cosgrove, McPike, and McDougall. Returning to page 11, Senate Bill 631 has passed the House with amendments.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serval.
Page 11,
Okay,
Senate Bill 631.
Right, Mr. President, I move that we concur with the House amendments and speak to that motion.
Senator's the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last time you will ever hear from me about shopping carts.
Hold on. Is that it?
So?
Is that a promise?
That's a promise.
Senator has the floor.
Never mind. I'll get back to this. Let me walk you through what the House did. First of all, they changed it from Plan District 8 to only Fairfax County and Arlington County, which are the original two jurisdictions that asked for it. Number two, they said that you have to give the retailers at least 15 days to pick up their cart. There was no maximum or minimum on the prior bill. Number two, they limited the fines you can assess the retailer to $300 per cart. And lastly, the bill had a provision that allows the locality to adopt an ordinance if they find somebody pushing a cart around on the street, and that would be a civil infraction. There's already a state criminal infraction, a criminal code provision, a Class 3 misdemeanor for taking a shopping cart off premises, separate from petty larceny. But anyways, they've added language that says you can't be convicted of both. It's one or the other. So those are the four changes they made. And with that, we are going to put an end to the scourge of loose shopping carts in Fairfax County and Arlington. I would hope we would adopt the amendments.
Thank the senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 20, noes 19.
Mr. President, can we reconsider? No.
Ayes 20, noes 19. The Senate concurs with the House amendments.
Mr. President.
Senator from King George, Senator Stewart.
Parliamentary inquiry.
The senator has the floor.
Based upon the amendments to that bill, would that not have been special legislation?
Senator from Eastern Fairfax.
Mr. President, speaking to the parliamentary inquiry,
there's the floor.
Isn't it correct that traditionally in this body, when we refer to the county manager plan of government or the urban county form of executive form of government, that is not special legislation because it doesn't mention the locality?
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serval.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I tried to say this the last time we'll ever talk about shopping carts, but I guess having voted on the prevailing side by which we passed Senate Bill 631, I move we reconsider the vote so we can maybe talk about it one more time.
Thank the senator. The question is, shall the vote by which Senate Bill 631 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 29, noes 9.
Ayes 29, noes 9. The motion is agreed to. Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Serval.
Having previously explained the bill and broken my promise, I move that we pass the bill.
Senator has the floor. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Would the senator from Eastern Fairfax yield for a question? Just
Senator yield.
I'll yield, but I'm really trying not to talk about this anymore, as I promised. But if you make
I
me,
understand. So just so I have this straight, somebody steals a cart from a shopping center, and let's say within a community, over a period of time, there's 20 carts that have been stolen from the food store. If they don't pick it up within 15 days, they got to pay a $6,000 fine. Is that what?
Mr. President, what I would say to that is not exactly. What I would say is that if the locality were to find those 20 carts in one place and notify the store that they found them and tell them to come pick them up, and then the store chose not to pick them up after 2 weeks, and it cost more than $6,000 to pick them up, then they could be assessed $6,000 net of probably the scrap metal cost of those carts, which is actually can be substantial. So it just depends on that, but it's not quite that simple.
So let's make sure I have this straight. So they're the victim.
I'll yield.
Would the senator yield for another question?
I'll yield.
So they're the victim of a theft, but they're the ones winding up, if they don't pick it up, having to pay for it. Is that correct?
Mr. President, I would say that's partly correct. The way I like to think of it is if you left if the senator from the senior senator from Fairfax left his Jaguar parked in front of his house with the keys in the hood, and the car got stolen 200 times, and he wanted the police to pick it up 200 times, eventually it becomes a burden to the rest of us. And there are measures that can be taken to not have his property stolen, like putting his keys in his pocket. So from my perspective, it's not quite that simple.
But further question?
You do know.
I'll yield.
Senator yields. There's the floor.
But I think it was brought up when we discussed this before that some of them had taken preventative measures, such as, making it impossible, to leave the parking lot. A barrier would come up if it detected it, so the people took it around the barrier, and still the food store was liable.
So there's the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I would say to the senator is that, at least in the area that I'm familiar with, Walmart did, after being publicly embarrassed after so many of their carts were found, they weren't doing anything about it. They did install a cart control system. However, after about a year, they stopped purchasing carts that would be affected by their system, and so their system became completely ineffective. In addition, the Costco that they built, where I asked them to put a cart control system in, told me they promised that none of their carts would be stolen, and I've taken 15 of their carts out because they didn't take any measures. And so, from my perspective, this incentivizes them to install measures and to make sure that their measures are effective by changing the economics.
Would he yield for one final question?
One final question, Senator Yield.
I'll yield for one more question.
Then I'll let it go. If you were the president of one of these food chains, wouldn't the most prudent thing be to remove your name from that shopping cart, which they can easily do?
Mr. President, that could be something they might do, but I would submit that given the proximity of the cart to their store and the carts that are probably sitting in the queue at the grocery store, I think it'd be pretty easy to figure out where the cart came from.
I would just say this, Mr. President. Good luck trying to prosecute a case like that.
Thank the senator. Question is, shall the Senate concur with the House amendments? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. The senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 22, no 17.
Ayes 22, no 17. We got you even more votes for your shopping cart bill.
Returning to page 1 of the calendar, House Bill 1256.
Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I move that
Senator from Southern Fairfax, Senator Barker.
Mr. President, I move again that renew my motion that we pass 1256.
Senator has the floor.
All right. And this bill, as has been explained, was the one on which we had a floor substitute earlier today that was adopted. And there are protections built into the bill, including an enactment clause that says the bill does not become effective unless the General Assembly passes the constitutional amendment for the second time this year.
Junior Senator from Richmond City, Senator Morrissey.
Mr. President, speaking briefly in support of the substitute offered by Senator Barker.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, I think if I'm not interrupted, I can complete this in about 90 seconds. First of all, it's important that the citizenry know how committed the Senate, at least this caucus, is to diversity. As I said earlier, one of those safeguards is the 4 leaders, including the President pro temp, will be selecting those people that will be participating in the redistricting commission. Number 2, the citizen members of the redistricting commission will be selected in the following process. Ten judges will be selected, and the code and the substitute offered by Senator Barker clarifies in line 261 that they will be selected based on diversity. Those 10 will be then vetted down to 5, again, vetted by folks like Senator Locke for diversity. After they get to those five commissioners, then we will select those 8 commissioners, citizens commissioners. And on line 344, those judges are obligated, the language is shall, select those citizen commissioners based on, once again, diversity. Thank you, Mr. President. 88 seconds.
Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding House Bill 1256? Seeing none, the question shall House Bill 1256 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 17, noes 23.
Ayes 17, noes 23. House Bill 1256 fails.
On page 8 of the calendar, House Bill 648, second conferees as appointed by the Committee on Education and Health, Senator Lucas, are Senators Donovan, Peterson, and Barker.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Sasslaw.
Mr. President, having voted on the prevailing side on the previous I'll hold on.
Senate will be at ease.
Well, ask Mamie. Consider that one. I'm going to reconsider 1256 right now.
Is that the one on page 1?
Yeah.
And then take it by?
Take it by.
The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privilege of the floor will please retire to the gallery. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, before we recess now for the mock paid session, having voted on the prevailing side, I would move that we reconsider HB 1256, and then I'll make a motion to let it go by till after the session.
Thank the Senator. Question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1256 failed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion record their vote aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senator desire to change their vote? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, no 0.
Ayes 39, no 0. The motion is agreed to. The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Mr. President, I would now move that we stand in recess till 11.
You want the bill to go by?
I move this go by temporarily. I thought.
Without objection, House Bill 1256 will go by temporarily. The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
I would move that we now stand in recess. Madam Clerk, would 11 be enough time?
11:30.
11:30.
We stand in recess till 11:30.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Upon recess, if the Senate Democrats could meet in Senate Room 1.
Thank the Senator. Without objection,
Mr.
Hanover, Senator McDougal.
If the Republicans could go to our room where we don't pray, but we do communicate.
Thank the Senator. Without objection, the Senate will stand in recess until 11:30 a.m.